The stars shimmered like scattered diamonds across the endless black sky, casting a cold glow on the alien world below. On the surface of the planet Zithera, a city of gleaming spires and floating bridges stretched toward the heavens. It was beautiful, yet silent, as if holding its breath for something that had not yet come. Among the highest towers, Princess Lyra stood alone in her private chamber, gazing down at the city she had always called home. Her violet eyes reflected both the lights of the city and a storm brewing deep within her heart. Lyra had been raised to trust her people, to believe in the unity and wisdom of the Zytherians. But tonight, that trust had been shattered. Rumors had reached her ears. Rumors of betrayal and dark schemes within the royal council. Whispers of a plan to exterminate a small human colony on the nearby planet of Terra had spread like wildfire. These humans, fragile and unarmed, had done nothing to harm Zithera, yet some council members believed their planet held secrets worth destroying. Lyra's stomach churned with disbelief. How could her own people, her own kind, plot such cruelty? The princess clenched her fists as a message blinked into existence on the transparent screen before her. The words were short, urgent, and chilling. Meet me at the landing docks. Alone. Do not trust anyone. No signature. No name. Just a warning. She didn't hesitate. Lyra knew the voice of deception all too well, and she had learned to listen when danger whispered. The streets below were alive with hovercrafts and floating pedestrians, unaware of the secret storm brewing in the skies above. Lyra moved quickly, her flowing silver cloak catching the light of the street lamps as she descended via an anti-gravity lift. Her heart raced, a mixture of fear and determination fueling her every step. Tonight, she would see the truth for herself. The landing docks stretched along the edge of a cliff, where the city lights met the dark void of space. Ships of every shape and size glimmered as they prepared for departure or arrival. Among them, a single, small shuttle waited, its engines humming softly. As Lyra approached, she noticed a figure standing in the shadows. The figure was human, not Zytherian. He was tall, with dark hair and an expression that blended caution with curiosity. "Are you Lyra?" the human asked, his voice steady despite the tension that hung in the air. "Yes," she replied cautiously, stepping closer. "Who sent you?" "No one," he said, shaking his head. "I'm here because I want to help. Your people, some of them, they're planning something terrible." Lyra's heart thudded painfully. She wanted to believe him, but the weight of betrayal pressed down on her. "Why should I trust you?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Because I have no reason to lie," he said. "I've seen the orders. I've intercepted communications. They plan to destroy your planet's human neighbor tomorrow." A cold shiver ran down Lyra's spine. The thought of innocent humans being annihilated by her own kind made her stomach twist. She had been taught that Zytherians were noble, honorable, guardians of the galaxy. But here, under the flickering lights of the landing dock, she realized that some of her people had lost their way. "Then we have to stop them," she said, her voice firm despite the fear rising inside her. The human nodded. "But you can't do it alone. They'll never believe you. And if they find out you've betrayed them, they will come for you." Lyra swallowed hard, her mind racing. She had spent her whole life preparing to lead, to protect her people, yet she had never imagined that leadership might mean defying those closest to her. She took a deep breath, summoning every ounce of courage. "Then we do it together," she said. "But first, we leave. They can't follow us into space without their own ships knowing." Without another word, the human gestured for her to board the shuttle. The engines roared to life as the craft lifted smoothly into the air, leaving the city of Zithera behind. Lyra pressed her hand against the cool surface of the control panel, watching as the familiar skyline disappeared beneath them. She felt a pang of sorrow for her people, the ones she loved and the ones who had betrayed her. As the shuttle surged into the blackness of space, Lyra glanced at the human beside her. "What's your name?" she asked, curiosity breaking through her fear. "Ethan," he said simply. "And you, Princess Lyra. We have a lot to do if we want to survive this." Lyra nodded, her violet eyes blazing with determination. Somewhere out there, a dangerous plan was unfolding. Somewhere out there, her people's betrayal threatened countless innocent lives. And somewhere out there, she would find the strength to fight. For her people, for the humans, and for herself. The stars stretched endlessly before them, silent witnesses to the beginning of a rebellion that would shake the galaxy to its core. Lyra knew that from this moment, nothing would ever be the same. She had taken the first step into the unknown, and the journey ahead promised danger, mystery, and a chance to redeem not just herself, but the very soul of Zithera. The shuttle glided silently through space, leaving the glowing world of Zithera far behind. Lyra sat beside Ethan, her eyes tracing the stars as if searching for answers among them. Her heart still pounded from the realization that her own people could betray not only her but innocent humans. The thought made her hands clench into fists. Ethan glanced at her, sensing her turmoil. "You don't have to explain everything yet," he said gently. "But you should know, time is short. They move fast." Lyra nodded. "I need to know what they plan. I need to stop them." Ethan tapped a sequence on the control panel, bringing up a holographic map of the human colony. Tiny blue lights flickered across the display, each representing a building, a life. "Tomorrow," he said, pointing at a cluster of lights, "they plan to strike here. Zytherians will use plasma bombardments and boarding teams. The humans won't have a chance to defend themselves." Lyra's stomach twisted. She had trained for diplomacy, for peace, not for war. But now, the lives of an entire planet rested in her hands. "How do we stop them?" she asked, her voice trembling, though her eyes blazed with determination. Ethan looked at her gravely. "First, we warn the humans. Then, we have to find evidence, proof that your people are planning this. Without it, no one will believe us, and you could be branded a traitor." The shuttle sped through the void, leaving streaks of distant light behind. Lyra's mind raced. She had always been protected, guided by advisors and guards. Now, she was alone, except for a human she barely knew, hurtling toward danger she had never imagined. "What do you know about them?" she asked cautiously, breaking the tense silence. Ethan hesitated. "I'm a spy," he admitted, his voice quiet. "I've been tracking Zytherian movements for months. I didn't expect to meet a princess who would want to help. Most of your kind, they don't care about humans. But you're different." Lyra felt a strange warmth. No one had ever said that to her before. She had been seen as a figurehead, a symbol, not as someone who could act or make a difference. Now, she realized she had the power to change everything. The shuttle began its descent toward the human colony, slipping past patrol satellites and unnoticed defense grids. Lyra's heart pounded as she peered through the viewport. Below, the colony stretched across a green and blue planet, peaceful and unsuspecting. Smoke rose from a few small factories, but otherwise, life seemed ordinary. "They won't know we're coming," Ethan said. "But once we land, we have to move fast." The shuttle landed gently on a flat clearing at the edge of the colony. Lyra stepped out, feeling the soft soil under her boots. The air smelled different, fresher, earthier than Zithera. She took a deep breath, letting it calm her nerves. Suddenly, a figure appeared from between the buildings. A tall man, wearing simple clothes, held his hands up in surprise. "Who are you?" he asked. His voice was cautious but not hostile. "I'm Princess Lyra," she said, her voice firm yet gentle. "And this is Ethan. We need to speak with your leaders. It's urgent. Your colony is in danger." The man's eyes widened in disbelief. "A princess? From Zithera?" "Yes," Lyra said quickly. "I'm here to stop an attack. My people, some of them are planning to destroy your colony tomorrow. You have to believe me." The man studied her carefully. He saw the truth in her eyes, the fear, the urgency, and the sincerity. Slowly, he nodded. "Follow me. You'll need to speak with our council immediately." As they moved through the colony, Lyra noticed the humans going about their lives. Children playing in the open fields, workers tending to machinery, families eating together. She felt a pang of guilt and determination. These people had done nothing wrong, yet her own kind wanted to harm them. She had to protect them, no matter the cost. Inside a modest building, the Council of Humans gathered. They were older, wise, and cautious, yet curiosity shone in their eyes as Lyra explained the situation. Ethan provided details from intercepted communications, while Lyra spoke of the betrayal she had uncovered. At first, the humans hesitated. Could a Zytherian princess really be trusted? Could they believe her words against the reputation of her people? But as the minutes passed, her sincerity and courage became undeniable. By the end of the meeting, the council had made a decision. They would prepare for the attack and trust Lyra as their ally. Lyra felt relief, but it was short-lived. Ethan's communicator beeped urgently. He glanced at the screen, and his face went pale. "They know," he said quietly. "Zytherian patrols are approaching the colony. They must have detected the shuttle. We need to act now." Lyra's heart raced. The moment of truth had arrived. She could feel the weight of both worlds on her shoulders, the humans she had sworn to protect and the Zytherians she had once called family. With a deep breath, she stepped forward, her voice steady. "Then we fight. We fight to protect life, to stop betrayal, and to show that even one princess can make a difference." Ethan nodded, his eyes filled with determination. Together, they moved toward the edge of the colony, ready to face whatever came from the stars. And somewhere above, in the dark of space, the first shadows of Zytherian attack ships appeared, silent and menacing. The battle for survival had begun. The sky above the human colony darkened as Zytherian attack ships emerged from the void like silent predators. Their sleek, silver bodies glinted in the light of the colony, engines humming with lethal precision. Lyra's heart pounded as she stood beside Ethan, her violet eyes scanning the horizon. The betrayal of her own people had become painfully real. "They're coming faster than I expected," Ethan said, gripping the control panel of a small hover vehicle. "We have to get to higher ground. From there, we can warn the humans and organize defenses." Lyra nodded. Every instinct in her body screamed to act, to protect. "Let's move," she said. They raced across the colony in the hover vehicle, the wind whipping against their faces. Below, humans noticed the approaching ships, their initial fear turning to panic. Children were quickly herded indoors, and workers grabbed whatever weapons the colony could muster. Mostly simple energy rifles and mining tools adapted for defense. It was hardly a match for Zytherian technology, but it was all they had. Lyra's mind worked fast. She remembered the emergency protocols Zythera used for internal security drills. If she could get the humans to work as one unit, they could delay the attack long enough for her plan to succeed. "Listen to me," she shouted over the roar of the hover vehicle's engines. "Use your energy shields to protect the colony's edges. Keep civilians in the center. Focus on slowing them down, not fighting them directly." The humans hesitated, then nodded. They trusted her, even though she was an alien princess from a race that many had feared. Something in Lyra's voice carried authority and urgency, proof that she was willing to risk everything for them. From their vantage point on a small ridge overlooking the colony, Lyra and Ethan watched the first Zytherian ships descend. Their weapons glowed ominously, ready to fire. The humans activated the few defensive shields they had, and Lyra felt a surge of hope. This was their only chance. Suddenly, the first wave of Zytherian fighters attacked. Plasma beams streaked across the sky, crashing into the colony's outskirts. Buildings shuddered and smoke rose in black clouds. Lyra's stomach tightened, but she forced herself to stay calm. Panic would only make things worse. "Ethan," she shouted. "We need to strike their engines before they land. Aim for the engines, not the ships themselves. Disable them." Ethan nodded, piloting the hover vehicle with precision. Their target was a large cruiser, the flagship of the attack fleet. Lyra focused, her hands hovering over the weapon controls. She had never fired a weapon in her life, but she knew she had to try. The cruiser descended closer, its weapons scanning for targets. Lyra's pulse raced as she locked onto an engine core. With a steady breath, she fired. The beam hit its mark, and the cruiser shuddered violently, sparks flying from the damaged engine. The ship spiraled out of control, crashing into the ridge beyond the colony. The humans cheered, their fear momentarily replaced with courage. Lyra felt a surge of hope, but there was no time to celebrate. More Zytherian fighters were approaching, faster and more numerous than before. "They're regrouping," Ethan shouted. "We can't hold them off forever." Lyra's mind raced. She remembered the shuttle's emergency cloaking device, a technology she could activate remotely. If she could use it, they might escape long enough to warn the rest of the human colonies and gather reinforcements. "Help me activate the cloaking field," she yelled. Together, they worked quickly, pressing a series of buttons and activating the emergency system. A shimmering wave enveloped the hover vehicle, rendering it nearly invisible to the Zytherians. The first wave of fighters passed right by them, unaware of their presence. Lyra exhaled, her body trembling from the adrenaline. But even as they escaped detection, she knew the battle was far from over. Zytherian forces would not give up easily. They would come back, stronger and more prepared. And when they did, Lyra would have to be ready to face her own people in combat. Suddenly, Ethan's communicator beeped urgently. A transmission from the Colony Council appeared on the screen. "Princess Lyra," one of the leaders said, voice shaking with relief. "Your warning saved hundreds of lives. But the fleet, it's larger than you said. They will return tomorrow, with reinforcements. You must prepare." Lyra's violet eyes hardened. "Then we prepare," she said. "We will not let them destroy innocent lives. Not now, not ever. We fight for every human on this planet, and for anyone my people try to betray in the future." As night fell over the colony, the two of them worked tirelessly. Humans and aliens side by side, repairing defenses, planning strategies, and preparing for the coming storm. Lyra felt a strange mix of fear and determination. She had left her home, defied her people, and now stood with those she had sworn to protect, knowing that tomorrow's battle might demand more than she had ever faced before. Somewhere in the darkness, beyond the stars, the Zytherian fleet regrouped, unaware that one princess had begun a rebellion that could change the fate of the galaxy. Lyra stared at the stars, her resolve burning brighter than ever. She had betrayed her people, but in doing so, she might just save countless lives. And she would not stop until every life was safe, no matter the cost. Dawn broke over the human colony, painting the sky with streaks of orange and pink. The air was heavy with tension, each second stretching like a rope about to snap. Lyra stood on a ridge, surveying the defenses. Humans moved quickly, setting up energy shields and barricades, while Ethan coordinated scout patrols. Despite the relief from yesterday's escape, the threat had only grown. The Zytherian fleet would return, stronger, angrier, and prepared. Lyra's mind replayed every conversation she had overheard in Zythera, the whispers of the council plotting destruction, the cold calculations of leaders who saw humans as expendable. Her violet eyes burned with determination. "We can't let them win," she said, voice low but firm. "If they think fear will stop us, they're wrong. Today, we fight not just for survival, but for justice." Ethan nodded, gripping his console. "They've likely reinforced their fighters overnight. They'll come with boarding teams this time. Our shields may slow them down, but we need a plan to fight back directly." Lyra turned to the human council leaders, who were assembling small teams of volunteers. "We'll need to work together. Humans take positions along the outer perimeter. I'll join the strike team with Ethan. We'll target the command ship. If we take out their leader, their fleet may retreat." A murmur ran through the humans, a mix of fear and hope. They had never fought Zytherians before, yet the presence of an alien princess willing to risk her life for them inspired courage. Hours later, the horizon darkened as the Zytherian fleet reappeared, more ships than the previous day, their engines glowing ominously. Lyra's heart raced. She could feel the weight of every life in the colony pressing down on her shoulders. "Prepare for impact," Ethan shouted, as plasma beams streaked toward the shields. The humans activated every defensive measure, energy shields flaring as they absorbed the first wave of attacks. Buildings shook, but the colony held, buying precious time. Lyra leapt onto a hovercraft, Ethan at her side. "We strike the command ship," she yelled. "Follow me, and stay sharp." The command ship loomed above the colony, larger and more heavily armed than the other vessels. Lyra could see figures moving on its deck, Zytherians armed with energy rifles, ready to descend and destroy everything below. She clenched her fists. This was the moment she had trained for, though training had never prepared her for the weight of real lives on the line. Ethan piloted the hovercraft with precision, dodging plasma blasts as Lyra fired at the engines of smaller ships, disabling them one by one. The humans watched from below, rallying together to protect their families and infrastructure, inspired by Lyra's courage. As they neared the command ship, a hatch opened, and Zytherian soldiers began descending. Lyra's stomach twisted at the sight of her own people, the same species she had trusted, now coming to kill humans. She raised her weapon, hands steady despite the fear. "We fight for life, not for conquest," she shouted, taking aim. The battle erupted. Plasma fire lit the sky as Lyra and Ethan moved skillfully among the descending soldiers, neutralizing them without hesitation. Humans joined from the ground, using whatever tools they had: energy rifles, improvised explosives, even old mining machinery adapted for defense. The clash was chaotic, terrifying, and intense, yet each human fought with a newfound bravery, inspired by the alien princess who had risked everything to protect them. Lyra spotted the commander of the Zytherian forces, a tall figure in sleek armor, moving with calculated precision. Her heart sank. This was the architect of the betrayal, the one who had ordered the destruction of innocent lives. "Ethan, cover me!" she shouted, pushing forward toward the commander. The commander noticed her immediately. "Princess Lyra," he said, voice cold and sharp. "So, you've chosen to betray your own kind. Foolish girl." "I choose to protect the innocent," Lyra replied, determination blazing in her eyes. "Something you clearly cannot understand." A duel erupted. Lyra dodged blasts of plasma, countering with precise strikes. Every movement was a mix of skill and instinct. Ethan provided cover, taking out soldiers that tried to flank her. The humans below rallied, pushing back the Zytherians with clever traps and courage. Finally, Lyra managed to disable the commander's energy shield with a well-aimed strike. The Zytherian fell, stunned and vulnerable. Lyra approached, weapon raised. "This ends now," she said. The commander glared at her but said nothing, retreating toward the remaining ships. Lyra knew they would regroup, but for the first time, she felt hope. The humans had survived, their courage tested and proven. And for the first time, she realized that her choices, though dangerous, were making a real difference. As the remaining Zytherian forces retreated into the void, the colony erupted in cheers. Humans and alien allies alike celebrated their first victory, yet Lyra knew the war was far from over. She turned to Ethan, her eyes reflecting both exhaustion and resolve. "We've won today," she said softly, "but tomorrow will be even harder." Ethan nodded. "We'll be ready. Together." Lyra looked up at the sky, where distant Zytherian ships disappeared into the stars. Somewhere out there, the leaders of her people were planning their next move. She clenched her fists, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. One princess, standing against betrayal, fighting for life, this was just the beginning. And she would not stop until every threat to the innocent was ended. The morning after the battle was quiet, almost eerily so. Smoke still rose from the outskirts of the colony, and the ground bore the scars of the previous day's fight. Lyra walked among the humans, her violet eyes scanning their faces. They were weary, frightened, but determined. She felt a strange mix of pride and sorrow. So much destruction, so many lives almost lost, and yet they had survived because of courage and unity. Ethan approached, carrying a datapad filled with intelligence on Zytherian movements. They've retreated for now, he said. But not for long. They'll return with reinforcements, and next time, they'll be prepared for us. Lyra nodded. We need a plan. We can't just defend, we have to strike strategically, or we'll always be reacting. The Human Council gathered in their main building, its walls scarred but still standing. Lyra took her place at the head of the table, feeling the weight of leadership settle more heavily than ever. We need to understand our enemy, she began. Zytherians are organized, disciplined, and technologically advanced. But they underestimate determination and courage. They think one princess cannot change the course of events. We will show them they are wrong. One of the council members, an older man named Garrett, spoke up. Princess Lyra, your presence gives us hope. But we need more than hope. How do we strike back against an enemy that outmatches us in every way? Lyra glanced at Ethan. We use what they don't expect. They assume humans are weak, unpredictable, and easy to intimidate. But humans are resourceful. They adapt, they improvise, and they fight for each other. We will exploit that. Ethan projected a holographic map of the surrounding star systems. We've identified a weak point in their patrol routes, he explained. A supply station that fuels their fleet. If we can disable it, even temporarily, we can slow their attacks and buy time for the humans to strengthen defenses. Lyra studied the map, her mind racing. We'll need a strike team, she said. Humans who are brave and skilled, and a small group of us to infiltrate the station. Precision is key. We cannot afford to be reckless. Several volunteers immediately stepped forward, their courage shining through fear. Lyra felt a surge of pride. These were ordinary people, yet they were willing to risk everything to protect their home. We will train quickly, she said. We move at night. Stealth and speed will be our greatest weapons. Over the next hours, Lyra and Ethan worked tirelessly, teaching the humans to use alien technology salvaged from the crashed Zytherian ships. Shields were reinforced, communication systems improved, and basic tactical maneuvers were drilled into the volunteers. Lyra was amazed at how quickly they adapted, their determination growing with every success. As night fell, the strike team prepared to leave. Lyra stood at the front of the shuttle, looking at the humans gathered around her. Tonight, she said softly, we show them that life cannot be destroyed by fear. We fight for every person in this colony, and for every innocent life that Zytherians think they can take without consequence. We fight together, and we will prevail. Ethan checked the shuttle systems one last time. We move in silence, he said. The station is heavily guarded, but if we strike quickly, we can disable the fuel core before reinforcements arrive. Lyra nodded, her hands gripping the edge of the shuttle. She felt a mix of fear and determination, knowing the risk they faced. But she also knew that hesitation would cost lives. She had crossed the line, betrayed her own people to save others, and there was no turning back. The shuttle lifted into the darkness, gliding through the star-strewn sky. Lyra gazed at the distant lights of Zythera, the planet she had once called home, now a symbol of betrayal. Somewhere among those gleaming towers were the council members who had plotted the attack, unaware that one princess was already acting against them. Hours later, the strike team approached the Zytherian supply station, a massive structure orbiting a barren moon. Security drones patrolled the perimeter, scanning for intruders. Lyra's heart pounded. She gave a silent nod to the humans beside her, and they moved into position, each step measured and precise. The first challenge was the security grid. Lyra and Ethan worked together, bypassing energy locks and rerouting sensor arrays. The humans followed, their nerves steady despite the tension. Finally, they reached the fuel core, a glowing mass of energy that powered the Zytherian fleet. Lyra took a deep breath and activated the charges Ethan had prepared. We have 10 minutes, she whispered. Everyone back to the shuttle. As the team retreated, alarms blared across the station. Zytherian drones swarmed, alerted by the intrusion. Plasma fire cut through the darkness, but the humans and Lyra moved with precision, avoiding hits and keeping to cover. When the shuttle lifted off, the fuel core detonated in a controlled explosion, sending a shockwave through the station. Lights flickered, systems failed, and for a moment, the entire station seemed to shudder in defeat. Lyra allowed herself a small smile. They had succeeded. But as they raced back toward the colony, Lyra knew this victory was temporary. The Zytherians would return, stronger and more vengeful. And when they did, the fight would become even more dangerous. Yet in her heart, Lyra felt hope. Humans were brave, resourceful, and united. And with their trust and courage, she knew they could face whatever the galaxy threw at them. For now, the rebellion had begun. And one princess, who had turned against her own kind, would continue to fight for every innocent life, no matter the cost. The colony had barely begun to recover from the strike on the Zytherian supply station when a deep rumble shook the ground. Lyra's violet eyes snapped toward the horizon. A fleet of Zytherian ships, larger and more menacing than before, emerged from the void. They had returned, and this time, they brought reinforcements. Ethan's fingers flew over the controls. "They found out we sabotaged the station," he said grimly. "This isn't a warning, they want total destruction." Lyra felt a cold knot tighten in her stomach. The cost of hesitation was clear. "Then we give them no reason to succeed," she said firmly. "Everyone to battle stations. Humans, stay calm and follow instructions. We fight smart, not just hard." The humans moved quickly, taking positions along the colony's perimeter. Energy shields flared, barricades reinforced, and lookout teams scanned the skies. Lyra joined Ethan in the hovercraft, ready to strike from above. The humans' courage, once uncertain, now shone brightly. Even in fear, they trusted her, and she could not let them down. The first wave of Zytherian fighters descended, plasma beams cutting through the early morning haze. Lyra maneuvered the hovercraft with precision, dodging the blasts and targeting engines of the incoming ships. Humans on the ground coordinated perfectly, their improvised weapons and shields slowing the attackers. For a moment, it seemed as though victory was possible. But then, from the lead cruiser, the Zytherian commander she had faced before appeared, flanked by elite soldiers. Lyra's heart sank. They had adapted to her tactics, learned her strategies, and now came for vengeance. "Lyra," the commander's voice echoed across the battlefield. "You cannot hide behind these humans. You will pay for your betrayal." "I fight for life," Lyra shouted, gripping her weapon tighter. "Something your kind has forgotten." The battle intensified. Plasma fire lit the sky, explosions rocked the ground, and the humans fought with everything they had. Lyra and Ethan struck the Zytherian soldiers with precision, buying time for the colony. Every moment counted. If the command ship landed its boarding teams, the colony would fall. Lyra noticed movement on the edge of the battlefield, Zytherian reinforcements attempting to flank the humans. "Ethan, block the flank." "I'll handle the command ship," she yelled. Ethan nodded and directed the hovercraft to intercept the reinforcements, firing energy pulses to disable their engines. Lyra took a deep breath and aimed at the command ship. She had studied its weak points during the previous attack. A precise strike could cripple it, buying the humans critical time. With careful focus, she fired at the engine core. Sparks flew as the ship shuddered violently. The Zytherian commander snarled and unleashed a volley of plasma at her, forcing her to dodge midair. Lyra pressed forward, unwavering. The ship's shields weakened with each hit, and finally, the engines faltered. The command ship began to drift, its systems failing. The humans cheered, their morale soaring. Lyra could feel the tide of battle shifting. But the commander wasn't finished. He activated an emergency teleport, bringing elite soldiers directly into the colony. Chaos erupted below as humans scrambled to defend their homes. Lyra's chest tightened with fear and determination. She had to protect them. Leaping from the hovercraft, Lyra landed in the midst of the boarding soldiers, her weapon flashing with deadly precision. Ethan joined her, cutting down attackers with skillful fire. Together, they formed a small but unstoppable force, buying humans time to regroup and fight back. The battle raged for hours, the sky lit with explosions and the ground trembling under relentless attacks. But Lyra never wavered. Every time a Zytherian fell, hope grew stronger among the humans. They began to fight as one, a force that even the Zytherians could not ignore. Finally, the Zytherian commander, seeing his forces falter, activated the retreat protocol. His ships disengaged, engines glowing as they lifted into space, leaving the colony battered but intact. Lyra collapsed to her knees, exhaustion and relief washing over her. Around her, humans cheered, embracing each other, survivors united by courage and determination. Ethan placed a hand on her shoulder. "We did it," he said softly. "For now, the colony is safe." Lyra looked up at the stars, her violet eyes reflecting both pain and pride. "This was only one battle," she said. "They will come back. And next time, it may not be just this colony at risk. But today, we proved something important." "What's that?" Ethan asked. "That courage and unity can challenge even the strongest," she replied. "One princess and a group of humans can stand against betrayal and oppression. And together, we can survive anything." As the sun rose over the battered colony, Lyra knew that the fight was far from over. But she also knew that she had found allies, strength, and hope. Zytheria's betrayal would not define her, nor would it define the humans. Together, they would continue to fight, for life, for freedom, and for every innocent soul under threat. Somewhere in the distant stars, the Zytherian Council watched, furious at their failed assault. Lyra had become more than a princess. They now saw her as a threat, a spark that could ignite rebellion across the galaxy. And that spark, once lit, could not be extinguished. The stars above the colony burned brightly, but the calm was only temporary. Lyra knew it. The Zytherian Council would not rest, and their next attack would be larger, more merciless. Yet for the first time, she felt ready. The humans were prepared, their courage proven, and she had learned to trust not just them, but herself. Ethan stood beside her on the ridge overlooking the colony. "They're coming," he said quietly, his eyes scanning the horizon. A fleet of ships, larger than any before, glimmered like predators closing in. "This is it. The final strike." Lyra's violet eyes narrowed. "Then we make it count. We fight not just to survive, but to end their reign of fear." The humans moved into position, shields activated, weapons ready. Lyra climbed into her hovercraft, Ethan at her side. Together, they would lead the strike team, targeting the command fleet before it reached the planet. Every detail mattered, every decision could mean life or death for thousands. As the Zytherian ships descended, their engines glowing ominously, Lyra's mind raced. She thought of her people, the ones who had betrayed her, and of the humans, whose lives depended on her choices. She clenched her fists. She had crossed a line, leaving Zythera behind, and now there was no turning back. The first wave of fighters attacked. Plasma beams streaked across the sky, explosions lighting up the dawn. Humans on the ground coordinated with precision, slowing the attackers and protecting civilians. Lyra and Ethan maneuvered through the chaos, striking at the command ship's weak points. Finally, the flagship came into view. The same Zytherian commander she had faced before appeared, standing tall, exuding authority and malice. "Princess Lyra," he said, voice cold and sharp. "You dare challenge the council itself?" "I challenge betrayal," Lyra shot back. "I fight for life, not conquest. And today, your tyranny ends." The duel began. Lyra dodged blasts of plasma, countering with precise strikes. Ethan provided cover, taking out soldiers who tried to flank her. The humans below worked as one, driving back reinforcements and protecting the colony. The battle reached a fever pitch. Lyra targeted the command ship's engines, aiming to cripple it. Sparks flew, shields faltered, and the ship began to drift uncontrollably. The Zytherian commander, realizing his defeat, attempted to flee in an escape pod. Lyra fired one final shot, disabling it. He tumbled into space, defeated but alive, a warning to those who might follow in his footsteps. The remaining fleet faltered, disorganized without their leader. Humans and Lyra's strike team pressed their advantage, disabling ships and forcing the Zytherians to retreat into the void. The colony was battered but standing, and for the first time, hope felt tangible. Lyra descended back to the colony, her body exhausted but her spirit unbroken. Humans rushed to greet her, cheering and embracing each other. Children waved, and workers smiled despite the destruction around them. For Lyra, it was a moment of quiet triumph amidst chaos, a victory not just of skill, but of unity and courage. Ethan approached, smiling. "You did it," he said. "We all did it, together." Lyra shook her head, her violet eyes softening. "It wasn't just me," she said. "It was every human who fought, every life we saved, every small choice to stand up against tyranny. Zytheria may have betrayed me, but these people, they've shown what it means to fight for life." For the first time, Lyra allowed herself to think of the future. She would no longer be a princess defined by betrayal and politics. She would be a protector, a bridge between humans and Zytherians willing to change, and a symbol of hope for those facing oppression. The sun rose fully over the colony, its light spilling across the battle-scarred ground. Lyra walked among the survivors, greeting them, listening to their stories, and feeling the bond that had grown between alien and human. It was a bond forged in fear, courage, and trust. Ethan approached with a datapad. "We've received messages from other human colonies," he said. "They've heard of what happened here. They're inspired. They're ready to stand up." Lyra smiled faintly. "Then the rebellion has begun," she said. "Not just here but across the galaxy. Zytherians will have to learn that betrayal has consequences, and life, innocent life, cannot be destroyed without resistance." The distant stars shimmered, silent witnesses to the victory. Lyra looked up, her mind already planning, already thinking of the next steps. She knew the Council on Zythera would not give up easily. But she also knew that courage, unity, and determination could challenge even the strongest forces in the galaxy. For Lyra, the fight had changed her forever. She had crossed the line, left her own people behind, and risked everything for life. And in doing so, she had discovered something more powerful than any weapon: hope. As the colony celebrated, Lyra and Ethan stood on the ridge once more, watching the horizon. "Do you think they'll come back?" Ethan asked. "They might," Lyra replied, eyes fierce and unwavering. "But now, we're ready. And next time, we won't just survive, we'll win." The stars stretched endlessly above them, and for the first time, Lyra felt a sense of peace. The rebellion had begun, but so had a new era. One where courage, hope, and unity could shine across the galaxy, and where even a single princess could change the course of history. And somewhere deep in the shadows of space, the Zytherians would remember this lesson for a long time.